law to improve the country's anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing framework. He commended the National Assembly members for their tenacity, courage, and commitment in ensuring that Nigeria put in place effective measures to address the menace of money laundering, terrorism, and terrorism financing. The Senate has threatened to withhold the 2023 capital budget of 100 ministries, departments, and agencies until they answer the queries raised against them by the Auditor General for the Federation. Senate President Ahmed Lawan gave the threat on the floor of the Senate while ruling on a point of order. The threat follows a point of order raised by the Chairman, Senate Committee on Public Account, Senator Matthew Urogide, who informed his colleagues that one-guy threat agencies refused to appear before the committee despite invitations sent to them. Some of the MDAs include the State House, Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, Ministries of Interior, Transportation, Mines and Solid Mineral Development, Information, Communication, Petroleum, Defense, Police Affairs, and Sports. The queries covered in the Auditor General's report are from 2015 to 2018. The Senate is given the agencies a one-week deadline to communicate with the Public Accounts Committee and set a date to appear before them, failing which the upper chamber would withhold their budget. The Senate has also raised concerns about the latest Central Bank of Nigeria CBN policy on cash withdrawals. Senate Minority Leader Philip Aduda, in a point of order during plenary today, called the attention of his colleagues to the new policy and demanded for caution as it will affect many Nigerians, especially small business owners. In his response, Senate President Ahmed Lawan cautions the CBN not to approach the policy by jumping into it at once, as many Nigerians will be affected. He further noted that there is a need to engage the CBN in discussions to get more details of the policy, and he directs the Committee on Banking to discuss this matter during the screening of the CBN deputy governors expected to hold before next week. The Senate has set next Tuesday to debate the new CBN policy. On sports, the management of Kano Pillars Football Club have charged their newly appointed gaffer, Evans Ogenyi, to remain focused on the major club task ahead. Muhammad Sani Uba has details of this and other sports updates.
The media officer of Kano Pillars Football Club, Lurwani Idris Malikawa Garu, has said the recruitment of the newly unveiled technician Evans Oyengi is part of the reforms carried out in good faith. According to him, the new technical crew headed by Oyengi is expected to produce the result that will submerge the previous week round's result that provoked the ill feelings being ventilated by the club supporters. Malikawa Garu, who as the club supporters not relent in giving total support to the programs initiated by the club management, that the decision being taken will yield positive result that will brighten the faces of the club supporters. He added that Pillars have resumed training last week at Sani Abacha Stadium, Koparmata, after appointing Coach Oyengi as the technical advisor that will lead the team in the forthcoming football season. In another update, former Juventus forward Daniel Adani has said that Portugal captain Cristiano Ronaldo should be content with a substitute role after his side 6-1 World Cup last 16 win over Switzerland last night. Portugal advanced into the quarterfinals of the World Cup for the first time since 2006 with a clinical performance that saw Goncalo Ramos score a hat-trick as Ronaldo was benched. Recall that Ronaldo was dropped from Portugal's starting 11 by head coach Fernando Santos in favor of Ramos. However, Adani, a former Italy international, insisted that the World Cup does not wait for anybody, including Ronaldo, who he believes should play a substitute role for Portugal national team. Meanwhile, Belgium and Real Madrid playmaker Eden Hazard has retired from international football at the age of 31. Hazard, who is an attacking midfielder or winger, made his Belgian debut in 2008 at the age of 17 and went on to win 126 caps, scoring 33 goals. His decision comes after Belgium were knocked out of the World Cup in the group stages. And on tennis, Novak Djokovic will play in 2023's Adelaide International, a year after being deported from Australia because of his COVID-19 vaccination status. The Serb, who has won a record 9 Australian Open titles, is also set to compete at the first Grand Slam of the year after his visa ban was overturned. Britain's Andy Murray, Carl Edmund and Jack Draper will also play in Adelaide, with the event beginning on 1st January. Muhammad Sani Uba Freedom Radio.
The Global News is coming to you from Freedom Radio 99.5 FM. You can send your comments, opinions, and watch us live on Freedom Radio Nigeria on Facebook.com. You can get the link to the page on our website, freedomradionig.com, or call us through this number, 082444 Welcome back. You're still listening to Freedom Global News on 99.5 FM. Federal government is paying more attention to promoting the plight of the poor and vulnerable in the country despite the economic slump the administration has inherited. Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Haji Sadia Umar Farouk, who was represented by the director of the ministry, Alhaji Birema Aliu, made the remarks at the closing ceremony of the N-Skill In-Center training held at Sania Bache Youth Center in Kano. Sadia Umar Farouk said the program of N-Skill is one of the largest social protection programs in Africa, with about $1 billion earmarked annually to cause positive change in the lives of the poor and vulnerable in the country.
This, more and more people will be out of poverty. As soon as these people have graduated, more will onboard. More people will also be on board to be trained, or they can also give them equipment to go and be on their own.
Umar Farouk added that the N-Skill program targets the marginalized and disadvantaged population, including those with primary education, as well as those not in any formal education, employment, or training. Correspondent Shamsuddin Abdullahi reported that the in-center training concluded in Kano after 6 weeks, and 356 youths were trained from 7 states in the Northwest geographical zone. For tomorrow's weather forecast in some cities in Nigeria and parts of Niger Republic, here's the report.
Kano tomorrow morning is expected to have a clear sky and light wind at an average temperature of 14 degrees Celsius and later change to 21 degrees Celsius with sunny intervals and a gentle breeze. Katsina will experience a clear sky and light wind at an average temperature of 17 degrees Celsius and later change to 22 degrees Celsius with sunny intervals and a gentle breeze. Kaduna will have a clear sky and light wind at 17 degrees Celsius and later change to 23 degrees Celsius with sunny intervals and a gentle breeze. Abuja is expected to have partly cloudy sky and light wind at 19 degrees Celsius and later give way to 26 degrees Celsius with sunny intervals and light wind. Lagos will have a clear sky and light wind at 25 degrees Celsius and later increase to 27 degrees Celsius with sunny intervals and light winds. Moving to Niger Republic, Maradi is expected to have a clear sky and a gentle breeze at an average temperature of 18 degrees Celsius and later give way to 23 degrees Celsius with sunny intervals and a moderate breeze. While Zinda will have a clear sky and light wind at 19 degrees Celsius and later give way to 23 degrees Celsius with sunny intervals and a moderate breeze. Here in Chatema, Freedom Radio.
On business, Abdurrahman Hamis in Medina has updates.
As Nigeria and other African countries continue to explore alternative sources of revenues to meet developmental challenges, President of the African Development Bank AFDB Group, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, says diaspora remittances to the continent should be acknowledged, respected and further explored. Adesina's observation is based on the fact that the value of remittances from the African diaspora doubled from $37 billion in 2010 and $87 billion in 2019, reaching $95.6 billion in 2021. The AFDB president further stated that official development assistance to Africa in 2021 was $35 billion, or 36% of the remittances from the diaspora. According to him, Egypt and Nigeria are among the top 10 remittances recipients globally with $31.5 billion and $19.2 billion in 2021, respectively. Meanwhile, the Global Bank has warned that Nigeria's debt service cost to revenue ratio could hit 160% in 5 years, except broad-based reforms are implemented to unfreeze the fiscal space. In a separate report, the Global Bank also said poorest countries that are eligible to borrow from the International Development Association IDA now spend over a tenth of their export revenues to service their long-term public and publicly guaranteed external debt, the highest proportion since 2000. Abdurrahman Hamis Namadina, Freedom Radio.
And on the foreign scene, a Mozambican court today sentenced the son of Mozambique's ex-president Armando Guebuza to 12 years in jail. This is following a vast corruption scandal in which the government unleashed financial havoc by trying to conceal huge debts. Abdulkarim Muhammad Abdulkarim reports.
Judge Ifigenio Baptista, who found Nnamdi Guebuza guilty of embezzlement, money laundering, and criminal association in a scandal that arose after state-owned companies in the impoverished country illicitly borrowed $2 billion between 2013 and 2014, said the crimes Armando committed have brought consequences of which its effect will last for generations. Meanwhile, China announced today a nationwide loosening of COVID restrictions following protests against the hardline strategy that grew into calls for greater political freedoms. Anger over China's zero COVID policy, which involved mass lockdowns, constant testing, and quarantines, even for people who are not infected, stoked unrest not seen since the 1989 pro-democracy protest. Under the new guidelines announced by the National Health Commission, the frequency and scope of PCR testing, long a tedious mainstay of life in zero COVID China, will be reduced. Lockdowns will also be scaled down, and people with non-severe COVID cases can isolate at home instead of centralized government facilities. Abdulkarim Muhammad Abdulkarim, Freedom Radio.
And with that, we've come to the end of today's Global News. But before we leave, highlights of our top stories. Federal government today announced the recovery of over 120 billion naira, among other currencies, through the proceeds of Crime Recovery and Management Law 2022. The Senate has raised concerns about the latest Central Bank of Nigeria CBN policy on cash withdrawals. Federal government is paying more attention to promoting the plight of the poor and vulnerable in the country, despite the economic slump the administration has inherited. And on the foreign scene, a Mozambican court today sentenced the son of Mozambique's ex-president Armando Guebuza to 12 years in jail. This is following a vast corruption scandal in which the government unleashed financial havoc by trying to conceal huge debts. On behalf of the entire production team and Izar Zanna, thank you for listening.